Hi, this is a Curvy3D5 beta tutorial. I'm showing off some high resolution mesh sculpting and some subdivision sculpting. To get a nice sculptable mesh, I've made a very high resolution sphere and then subdivided it again 3 times, so the triangle is almost the size of pixels. Then I picked the custom brush from the sculpting tools and loaded up a greyscale alpha image, and now I can splat that and stamp it onto the surface. I can change the size and rotation with a right click drag. I've just loaded up another mesh with tiling set on, and now I'm using sculpt on a layered surface, which means that the brush strokes don't interfere with each other. You can use surface save original surface to give yourself a base to work on. I'm just placing some hard poly sculpting on there. Using the options align to normals gives you a slightly different look. And I can now also use the erase brush to go back to the last time I saved the original surface from the surface menu, and there I can give some fine tweaks. Next I'm going to show you the poly editing. I can make a low poly sphere, almost as low as it'll go, to give myself a base mesh to start with. Now I'm going to convert it to normal mesh, press K, and then delete half of it. Now as soon as I use one of the poly tools on it, the SubD poly tools, it'll turn it into a SubD mesh. This lets you use subdivision in real time, and also lets you have like more than 4-sided faces, which is useful while you're changing topology. And there I've just used the extrude tool to pull out a face, and now I'm using right click to select different parts of the mesh and then moving them. I can use the drag tool to pull the points around. With select edge ring and then divide edges, you can add in new loops to give more definition to the mesh. So you see it's quite quick to build up resolution where you need it. And then you can use the pull just to tweak the points into shape, or you can use right click and select and then use the normal move tools. So I'm using divide edges and face bevel to add in new loops. Here I'm going to add a loop around the eye with a bevel. Just set the width of the bevel and click OK. Press S to smooth a little bit. I'm just going to add some more points around the mouth as well. Again, select the faces, bevel, smooth, just tweak the points into the center line. And by repeating these bevels, we can keep an all quad mesh, which is nice when it goes to high resolution, because it means all the quads deform in a predictable way. Adding some more extrusion of the nose. So I alternate between adding some new topology and then tweaking the points into place. a lot of tweaking and point dragging. Ideally you'd have some front and side pictures to compare against to get your proportions correct. But once you've got the topology okay on a mesh, then you can make it into various different heads just by pulling the points around. So just tweaking that head. I can turn on symmetry and subdivision for this model. So you can see on the left side we've got a nice clean face. Using loop select you can pull the points around and reform it into the shape of the head you want. In the poly menu you can pick points, edges or faces as your unit to select in with the right mouse button. So you can easily just maybe pull a face and then smooth it or tweak an edge. Here's the same mesh after some more pushing points around to give a simple head. There's the original mesh, and then you can turn on subdivision and mirroring to get the final result. So in this example I started with a cube and then added edges. What you can also do is start with a single face and then pull out edges. So I'm making a very low poly sphere, and I'll delete the back again, which gives me a single face to work with. And then using the poly build I can drag out edges to create geometry. If you drag from the middle of an edge it extends a face, and if you drag from a point diagonally it extends a face as well. Just fiddling around there. You can join by dragging and holding Alt. Control. It'll snap the verts together when you're holding Control. I just need a little bit more geometry to show off some of the other tools you have in your Polyediting toolkit. Of course there's the bevel, which we've seen before, which is good for adding a loop of geometry. And then extruding can give you like a dent or an eye shape or mouth. After using the extrude you need to bake the result of that operation to finish it up. Gonna add some more geometry. If you use draw on frozen option, you can snap all of these points onto another mesh which you've got frozen in your scene. So you can trace over to do a retopology. So what else have we got? We've got select edge loop and select edge ring. You can select a ring and then divide it, which adds another loop, which lets you add more detail. You can collapse edges together, which removes detail, which you've already added. And because we're not limited to four-sided faces, we can dissolve edges to make bigger polygons, You'll probably want to divide these up into tris and quads in the end. There's the knife tool, which can drag from point to point or mid point on an edge to a mid point on an edge. And the spin tool, which rotates the position of one edge in topology around. Now I'm dragging with the move tool and holding control to snap it into place, which gives you effectively the same as collapsing that edge. So holding all control to snap those verts together. Now, while we're working on this surface, we can also use subdivision and symmetry like we had before. See, it's giving us symmetry along the x-axis. If you drag the depth slider, it applies a thickness to that whole mesh you've been working on, which is it's similar to a loft or a slab, but in this case it can bend or deform in any direction. You can turn the bevel off, which gives you a smooth edged shape, or the bevel on to give you a crease around the edges of that shape. Here's another example of one I've edited into position from the same starting mesh. So it's got the same topology, just with different shapes. Of course, you can use this model now as a high-res mesh to sculpt on further.